So yeah, so for the past few years, if you've been a user of tools like Google Sheets and Excel, or other spreadsheet platforms, in recent years, or at least when those types of tools went online, you had Google Docs, spreadsheets, and slides, PowerPoint, those kind of things, as well as databases. So you might have written a database, actually hard-coded it, or you might have used something like Microsoft Access. But especially when you're working in an office environment, sometimes you need just little apps, if you want to call them apps. So let's say you just needed a little way just to keep inventory. And you didn't want to go off and build a whole big inventory app, and you didn't need the complicated tools that would cost a lot of money. And so for a long time, people would just make really, really fancy spreadsheets for themselves. And this wasn't incredibly helpful, and it might have worked for you as a person, but then the moment something went wrong, it would screw up everywhere. It really much required you to be a master of your own destiny, but also just it assumes a level of expertise, but also of customization that a spreadsheet it wasn't designed to do. So it's either that, or you have to either hire a developer to make something and then maintain that thing, or you need to learn how to code yourself. And some people are able to do that, and others aren't, for a variety of reasons. So a few years ago, there were some tools that started coming out that were starting to blur the line a little bit between like a traditional doc. If you look at Google Docs right now, it still looks like a piece of paper. Word does as well. They are still word processors. They have margins. They have margins for printers, and by default, the expectation is, and what you're developing looks like it's designed to be printed. But a lot of times we don't really use it for that anymore. We use digital documents to collaborate, to get our thoughts out, to do presentations. And so because of that, you need the document to be a little bit more intelligent, right? Maybe you want to actually display some information, and what if information changes? Do you then have to find the spreadsheet that you're wanting to get that information from, copy it, export a chart, whatever you kind of want to think about? It's hard to do that with the kind of typical word processing, typical kind of Microsoft Office type suite of software. It's just for the modern way that we're working nowadays. So there have been a few programs, old-fashioned, a few apps that have come out in recent years that are all in a similar space. They're in this let's be more advanced than docs. So you have things like Notion, which is a really cool app. You also then have things like Airtable, which come at it from the point of view of the table itself and the data, and making like spreadsheets and databases easier to use and more useful. And then you have something like Coda, and Coda is a relatively recent company, recent product. They've been in beta, I believe, for about a year, but beta is really not doing it justice. I mean, this thing is a powerhouse in terms of what you can do. And I first became aware of Coda, I think must have been about 8 months ago, when they had started sharing. I don't know, I think I saw it on Product Hunt, or I saw it somewhere else. And the promise of it was, and you had to get into a beta, so I managed to get into a beta. And the promise was that they said like a new day for docs, right? And I think Coda is a doc backwards, right? So that's what they were going for. And it's really a case of oftentimes we use these systems, we use like spreadsheets or documents as almost as if they were apps like ourselves, you know. So if you can't find a task manager that works well enough for you, you'll figure out your own way of doing it in a document or in a spreadsheet or something like that. So what Coda has done is they've taken the idea of a document, the idea of creating simple apps, actions, and integrations, and they've combined that into a really cool setup. So that was a very long preamble, but I want to just kind of show you some of what Coda has done, and what I use it for, and what other people use it for. And there are so many new things that come out for Coda all the time that I haven't even been able to have a chance to explore them yet. So I've also loaded up a couple of their templates just so that we can understand exactly what you can do with it. So like we've been using this home base document all week, and it's not a very complicated document. It just shows our schedule, right? But each of these things are a little bit more advanced than they may seem. So Monday's schedule, for example, if you see I can hover over that and there's some different controls. So I'll come back to that later. And Monday's schedule ends over there, and then you have Tuesday's schedule and Wednesday's schedule. So all of these are actually pulling from a master list, which I have in organizational riffraff, right? So first off, I like to categorize things in all things so that I can get access to everything. So this is our whole schedule, our ideas of what we're going to be doing, and then some helper fields for calculating things like times and stuff like that. So let's take one of these as an example, Callum Forsyth, right? So the conversation of our chat is with Callum, has a name, we have a type, we have a date, and that's a UK date. We have a length of time that's to help just us try and budget times, especially with our recordings. And then we have calculations for Eastern time and Pacific time, because a lot of our viewers are tuning in from Pacific time and Eastern time. Then we also have, we had a document that we had used before to ask Callum to fill in some details about himself. And then we have things like speaker images and categories and descriptions and all this good stuff. So you see sometimes there are multiple fields that look like they're the same thing, but they're actually not. And sometimes it's because of little quirks, but also other times they are there to accomplish a certain thing. So for example, date and time, set it as a format. I wanted to put in the date. But for Eastern time, I didn't want to have to go in and calculate the date, so I just created I referenced the day, the UK day, and I said minus time 4, which is hours. And so Coda helps you by giving you some suggestions. So if I wanted just to say this field is whatever that field was minus 4 hours. And I didn't want to do it just with times because I needed to do it with a date as well, because sometimes we're starting at 8 o'clock in the morning, and in Pacific time, especially when the time change didn't happen, some of our times would have been in a previous day. So we wanted to kind of track that. Also, when talking to guests, we wanted to be able to reference the time that they were on in multiple formats. So you can see this complicated thing. How can we use this in a bunch of different ways? A big thing about Coda is it encourages you to create one master or a few master tables, and then look at different views of them, views of those tables. So when we look at our schedule and we look at Tuesday, right? You can see the connections. So everything, which is also in the all things thing, all of these different views are then connected to everything. So Tuesday is a view of that table. So the visibility, I can hide columns I can also indicate like which columns are like the display column. So that's for referencing things, which we can go through later. And then I wanted to filter. So I said the filter of the day of the week is the 19th. And the reason why I went with that was just because the day of the week may be dependent. Like they were, a little bit ago, Coda was defaulted all days to be on Pacific time because again, they were in beta. So I did a calculation to say, well, what day of the week, what day of the month was it? And then I just said, right, we know that Tuesday, we're only going to have one 19th day, so filter all of it by Tuesday, group and sort by the day ascending, and we can make formats if we want to. So that's a really, really brief, that might sound very simple, but or it might not sound very simple, but it's actually quite simple to do in Coda. Another thing, though, that pulls through is the guest directory, and this is very different. So this, we're looking at a DEEB right here. This data is still in that same table, which is really cool. So you saw that bio earlier. Let's find them let's find a DEEB in here. A DEEB in everything. Right. So a DEEB in here. This is his listing in the table. The subject title, the length, the role, the bio, his picture, all of this stuff. But the way that we're choosing to display it in the guest directory is this way. So we've let's see, how can I show you this without? So I want to filter. I want to say a non-guest false, which is, I just created a little tick box to say anything that we were discussing. So like this talk, for example, is on the schedule, but there's no guest involved. So that talk shouldn't be part of the guest directory because there's no guest involved. So anything, so there's 42 guests that we have. And so that's what is being displayed here. And let's just say we wanted to have another way of seeing these guests. So I'll go down to the bottom here, and I can add these things. So table, I can add a view of everything, or I can create a new table. Cards, I could add a new set of cards, which would create a new table, or a card view of everything. A calendar view, I could show a calendar view of everything. Let's just try a calendar view just to show you what we mean. So you can see all of these people here. It's picking up a date, and so I'll need to indicate what kind of date. So start the date, the length. So it's understood that we have a length column, which is indicative of time. It's understood the hours, and it's plotted it along a calendar. And what's really cool is you can then get a stream from Coda that then you can put into your calendar, which is really cool. So there are these things called, there are automations and then there are packs. So here are some, like you could create a rule. So you could send, as you say, see daily weather update, summer email, add a rule, or you can add like a Google Calendar integration or a Slack integration. So whenever something happens, you get a Slack message and things like that. So I'm just gonna delete this because we don't need it. Now that'll screw it all up. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of an overview of how this document is a little bit more involved than you might have thought originally. Here's another way that we're using Coda right now. So this is only a week, so it doesn't make sense for us to have a huge project management system. Instead, we're using a really quick Coda that we set up to just keep track of the high-level progress that each of us is going through. So I put in a table, I put in a chart, but let's just see the original tasks, all tasks, right? So this is just tasks, the status, the people, the category, right? Pretty basic stuff. And then what I did is I created a button. So if you go plus here, you can create a button. So what I did is I created a button, and I'll show you what the button looks like. So the button you name the button, you label the button, and then it says what action do you want the button to take. So I said I wanted to add a row because it's in the tasks, and then I also wanted to set it to automatically set as not started. So that means, and then you can I picked a picture and all this kind of stuff. So if I press add a task right now, it'll then pop up and it'll say task name. It's automatically picked not started, but it lets me pick everything else. This pie chart is just a view of that table. So display pie chart. So when I created that, I can create it again if you want. Insert chart, pie chart, new pie chart, or all tasks. I want one of all tasks. And then I click the chart. And you can select different types of charts, especially so like for longer projects, I would say a Gantt chart, or like more complicated projects, a Gantt chart view is really, really helpful. What's really nice with larger views, and I'll show you some templates in a second that way, is if some people on your team really love Gantt charts and some people on your team really like Kanban and others just like task lists, what's nice is that you can work out of all of those on Coda. And it's not trying to replicate, or it's not trying to take the place of a very complex, advanced project management system. But what it does allow you to do is like you can have like your company wiki on here, you can have the project status, you can have like projects within projects, and then overall updates in terms of what's going on. You can summarize things, and then you can link things in quite advanced ways. So it just gives you a lot of flexibility. But I just wanted a pie chart just because we have 3 statuses, and we want that pie chart to then morph and then get completed. So I set it category by status, and the values, status, and count. So what do you want to do with it? You want to count. So I wanted to create a graph that counts how many tasks are done, how many tasks are in progress, and how many tasks are not started. And then I did a little thing here. So in terms of, this is the Kanban. So let's just say, let me say, I'll add a task. And I'll say, show people Coda. And it's in progress right now. It's me. And only me. And a category, it's outreach. And so then that's done. So in progress, oh wait, did I not save it? Did I not save it? Oh no, sorry. We're in product tasks. So you see the product tasks. This is only showing us tasks that are category product, and I chose that as outreach, so that makes sense. I go to Geld's task because I did it to myself, and it's there. It says show people Coda. So this is a task list that's just showing my tasks, which you can configure in the same way that I showed you how to configure the other one. You just say, in this case, it's people containing me, show them my tasks. And if there was a task that both Lizzie and I had to work on, it would still show it up in mine because I have something to do with it. So show people Coda hasn't been completed yet, but let's just make sure, let's just pretend that it has been completed, and you can say done, and then you can move it over. You can also add these things. You can actually add formulas inside text, which is really cool, and I'll show you another thing that we do with that too. So I currently have 4 tasks, and I've completed 8. I'm currently working on 3, right? Oh, that's a little old. I can file that as complete, and I can file that as complete too. So yeah, we have the person's task. We've also grouped all of these tasks by all in a Kanban list combo board. I know there's a fancy name there. And then we, just to keep us up to date, this is the basic bit of what we're actually building. So this gives us a quick overview of how the product's going. You can see about a quarter left. So by the end of today, we'll probably be even farther up. Ben will be even farther up, but that gives you an idea. So that's the product Coda that we made for this project quickly. So I want to show you also what a really messy Coda looks like. So in the lead up to here, we used Coda as a dumping ground for all of our stuff when it came to planning for Coda. So everything from our different guests and trying to plan that, to the copy that we use to try and create our different Landbots, our copy that we used for sponsors, tracking our sponsors, and all that kind of stuff. So I'll just show you quickly what that looks like. And this looks a little messy, but we really just were trying to get through things. And I think a little bit more planning of the Coda could have made it a little bit more efficient, but we didn't have a lot of time. So this is an example. We were thinking about AV options, right? So we were thinking about different ways of achieving what we wanted to do. And we also wanted to plan times where there would be a good chance of the West Coast viewers being able to watch us. So this was some ideas in terms of what we would do. We came up with a draft, kind of like this is the type of show that we might do. So the type of series, for example, this. And then a description of what it was that we were going to need, some potential guests, all that good stuff, right? Outreach strategy. So this again, just mostly a doc, but you can of course link it with other parts of the Coda. If you're making like a wiki or something, that's also really cool. So like, let's just say we needed to say, look at guests. You can then select a guest's. Oh crap! You can select a guest within one of the, like, Ashley Baxter, right? You wanted to reference Ashley Baxter. You could then reference something right there, which is pretty cool. We also then did it to track the progress of our sponsors, right? So we were looking for sponsors for this week, and this is a little outdated, but you can see we made use of a chart, and then a sentence. So each of these numbers has a corresponding filter, and then an actual task tracker. So we set up conditional formatting. I think we can see how the conditional formatting is set here. So we made some conditional formatting. So we wanted to color it just to see what kind of sponsor they would be. As you can see, like over here are our sponsors, right? The ones that actually made the commitment, which is awesome. Guests, our guest tracker, this is definitely out of date. We have over 40 guests, but let's just say I then moved one of these. Let's see. I don't know who Tony Lucas is, I'm afraid. But let's just move him along to recording scheduled. The moment that he is recording scheduled, you see that number goes up. And because that number is saying either recording scheduled, it's to count the people that have the recording scheduled category. And then we wanted to say if we had X number of guests, how many then broadcasts, how many interviews do we broadcast each day? So that's just a simple calculation divided by 5, because there's 5 days. And then a quick update in terms of what people have, and then a breakdown. So if you're tracking something and you want to have a quick overview, that's how you can do it. A couple of other things. So Coda has these amazing templates, and this is the best way to learn it. So if you do want to try Coda, and you can start you can use it for free. It's incredible. But what I would suggest you do is to explore some of these templates, and then click into each of their actions just to learn about the syntax and like how you write Coda formulas. And then you'll get the hang of it, and you can create copies and make your own. So for example, Shishir is the founder of Coda, and he has this incredible way of doing tasks. So I looked at this to-do list template, and he's published this as a template, and we he explains what the point is and and he links to all the areas. But importantly, it's about the philosophy. So for him, he has this idea of next action, which I think was quite new to me. So a task is almost like a mini project. A task may be complete, it may be done or not done, but it also just might be in progress for a long time. And sometimes it's also not you that has to do that task. So oftentimes, like, there'll be a task that someone else has to do, and I have to just remind myself to keep up to date with that task. And then there are also some tasks that are like really big tasks but have to be done during a certain amount of time. So really big tasks that have to be done over a long amount of time are projects, right? But really big tasks that have to be done in a short amount of time, an intense amount of time, he uses frogs, so like the eating the frog metaphor. And so what his system does, you can see here. So you have he has his different piles, and he goes in terms of time frame. So if you know getting things done, this might ring true to you. But today, this week, this month, someday, done. It's not about saying that something is overdue. It's just about keeping it in front of mind and then making sure that you're reviewing your tasks for the week and for the month and all that kind of stuff. And then he has these things called buckets, which are also really cool. So this is a way for him to just delineate what type of work is it, right? And so he splits them up in his way, right? And then he also has me and not me, which I think is one of the simplest things that I've never even thought about. So then you have his setup, and he explains how you do it. But here are all the tasks. He's created some buttons, and then here are his processes. Then what he has triage lists. So you can then look at each task by the category. That different way of figuring out what task is which, and you can see the time frame that he's talking about. And you can adjust it with these cool slider things. So what I would do is I'd look at the slider and say, okay, well, what is this slider? Slider, triage category, priority, minimum 1, set up priority time frame number, max 1. So he must have a priority time frame. So if you click through that, set up priority time frame. So set up, we'll expand all these so you can see them all. Right, so set up priority time frame. Set up, and then priority. Oh, sorry, it's on here. So set up priority time frame is probably the name of this one, I believe. Is it? Time frame. So you can kind of see how he's done his how he set it up. So when is 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's his time frame. So let's go back to that. So as you go down, you can see that it links it with the ones that, so if we're saying only 2, this is the only thing that he has listed there. You can also select, so he has his different buckets. So if he only wants to look at general or business or whatever. This is quite an advanced Coda, at least from a task point of view. Instead of using this, you might have used like a giant spreadsheet beforehand. But after configuring it, you can actually get in there and change things and get information a lot quicker than using spreadsheets. So this was really cool. I really loved it. I had some thoughts about how I would change it. A lot of it is about just how you want to use it, and I have different challenges than he does, obviously. But this idea of buckets and me and not me was really interesting, and so I copied his and then changed it and built my own. And I'll just show you how I do that. So this is a copy of my task list, just so that my specific ones aren't kind of shown. So I view buckets as like as like an hour of time. So it's a little bit different to the buckets that he's using. I'm trying to use it as a time tracking tool. So for my buckets, people use Pomodoros or other things like that in order to do the same thing. So what I do is I want to try and track just where I'm spending my time, where I'm spending my headspace, so that I can reflect on it later. But I also don't want that to be a really structured, very specific way of doing it. So the thing that worked for me and works for me is this. So if I've just spent an hour on Kindaba, I might press that, and then it says it's counted up my buckets, so it's added another bucket, and then it shows my work breakdown, and then the breakdown from the last week, the last month, since the beginning. And I've been using this for a few months now, so it's a little bit warped. And then I have my tasks. So I have tasks due today. Instead of the frog, I went with the gorilla. I just like that. I like that more. Who next? Still using that as well. I still have all my tasks, and what I do is I look at my tasks every week, and then I rearrange and put things in today. And then I have oftentimes you just have to quickly come up with tasks on like a notes app if you're in the meeting or something like that. So I use this space to quickly just paste all of those and then go through and just add them. Or if you say thing, like if you had tasks like there and you just wanted to put them in, you could then put them in like that, and I had it set up so that it automatically says today, so that I can go through and change it. And the moment that I articulate a bucket, so let's just say that thing was a Kindaba task, it'll then go away. So that means it's been processed. It's been done. So that's how and this is kind of my home base with it. So I have my buttons, my today's tasks, and then an overview of all my tasks as well. And then, I came up with some different views. And I look at this tasks by when every week, just to see what I have to do. So that's my task list. I wanted to show you we have a couple more minutes, a couple of templates from Coda, just to show you the range of things that you can do with it. So if you go down at the bottom of their templates, there's the feature-related starter kits. Ooh, one thing, before I forget, where is Shashir's? So look at what Shashir has done. Notifications. So his task list, he likes to send an email address, send a summary of his daily tasks to his email. So I'm going to add my email. So, I have to connect to account. I did it on a different account. But if you connected your Gmail account and you click that, it says what this button does. Right, so you connected Gmail account. You then select your account, obviously. You send it to the email address there, the subject today, and the content today. That means that you get an email that shows you this. So you get this sent to you in an email. I should have connected my account, but if you do this, set up your account, it's really cool. It's really, really fun. So you can create nice codas and then a button and then have it send an email of whatever it is that you're doing. How could that be useful? It could be useful for sending you stuff. Maybe you're working with clients and you have like a status page, and at the end of every night you just want to press an email and then it just sends them the current status, and you don't want to have them sign into anything. You can think of so many different ways to do it. Anyway, back to templates. So these button starter kits, you can look and see different examples of how they use buttons. One thing that I really wanted, I thought was so cool, was their example with a weather dashboard. So this is pulling in a location. It's then showing it on a map, It's also then pulling in the weather, and it's asking you, do you want Fahrenheit or Celsius? So it'll then change that. So let's just see this. So let's say Hong Kong. Let's see if it gets that. Hong Kong. Boom. So look at that. It's found Hong Kong, it's put it in there, and it's showing what the current weather is like in Hong Kong. So let's see how they actually did this. Units, Fahrenheit, Celsius, fine. All locations. Let's see how they did it. Weather. Current location, sure. Unit picker value is metric. So where's the unit picker value? Proper to singles like unit picker. Okay, location. Like, look at how. So location, city name is metric. That's so cool. Right. Okay. So then what hacks did they do? So what they did is weather. So they pulled weather in. What can we do with this? We only have a few minutes, but I'm gonna have some fun here. Let's see what we can do here. Table. Table. And then we can say name of city. Can we do the same thing? Edinburgh, UK. And then what if we did what format? What is this? Current weather, current unpick value metric. Let's copy and paste and work our way backwards. Current, this row, and obviously that's not going to work, so name, city, so does that still work? No. Metric. I haven't played with this one before. This is so cool. City name, postcode, Edinburgh, UK. City, yeah, weather, current is metric. I think that is not I'm gonna have to play with this. What's nice though is that you can then play with this, and it's look at that. It's just found that it was cloudy. You see that? So it is using weather. It must be referencing weather as the pack. And if you added a pack, like let's see, all these different packs that you can add, and then you can use those in your formulas, which is super cool. All right, I have to finish off, but there are so many things that you can do with this. There are, if you're interested in OKRs, you can track your OKRs on this. You can do various different types of to-do lists. You can look at all these different automation hacks. There's just so much that you can do on Coda, and I have to say, like, I mean, we were using Coda. We have been using Coda from the very beginning, but I wouldn't be kind of geeking out like this if I didn't see the value in it. But seriously, this is like the example of that tool that like solves a hell of a lot of problems when you don't know what tool to use. I love using tools for things. I love using tools that are specialized for things. But sometimes you just need something that is versatile enough to fix problems very quickly, or to get your ideas out on the table. This is a little bit more advanced than that, but you can still start small. You can start by using it for simple things and just explore what else you can do. I'm also going to be making an app as part of their Makers Festival. So Product Hunt and Coda are doing a Makers Festival next week. And they're encouraging people to learn about Coda, but also to make things, make an app by using Coda. And so I'm going to be making the one that we had an idea about called Intros by Humans. It's like a networking app, like to try and introduce people who have similar interests. And I'm going to be using Coda. I'm going to be using Landbot and Zapier and Card in order to try and do that. I might try and make another one at the same time. So if you've been interested in this, check them out. Otherwise, you can also write to me, and I can send you some other cool templates. But if you go to their site, look at their templates, and explore, you'll get learning really quickly. So thanks very much for that. All right. Next up is, I think, Josh Pickford.